Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to our first Healthy Casey event of the year. On behalf of the Kansas City Chamber and Healthy Casey, thanks for joining us today. I also want to thank our Healthy Casey sponsors, Blue Casey, Locked In, Advent Health, HCA Midwest. These and our other sponsors help to make our events and our efforts possible. Our topic today is mindfulness and its impact on cultivating a resilient workforce. And here to lead the conversation today is Robin Todd. Robin is the founder and owner of Mindful Momentum, one of our Healthy Casey Gold certified businesses. She has spent many years in education and holds a bachelor's and a master's degree in psychology. And since 2012, she's been helping organizations of all sizes reap the benefits of investing in employee mental health through mindfulness. Today, throughout the presentation, we invite you to submit your questions in the chat. And with that, Robin, I'll turn it over to you. Welcome.
Great. Hi, Brandy. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'm super grateful to be here and talking with all of you. And I'm going to share my screen just a second here, and we'll get started. So I'm super grateful that you're here, that you're taking some time out of your afternoon to join in this conversation that's incredibly important, as you know. And so for the next hour or so, we're going to kind of dive into a little bit about what resiliency is, some of the latest research that I have uncovered, why to invest in this topic with your employees, how to cultivate it. We're also going to spend a little time investing in your mental health because it's really important that you are resilient and to be mentoring and modeling that within your organizations. And then we'll start to wrap up with suggestions on how to move forward, and then have some time at the end for questions and answers. But I also want this to be really valuable to you. And I want this to be comfortable and casual. So if you have a question, please feel free to type that in the chat, and Brandy's going to kind of field that and interrupt me. And let's see if we can create some engagement, which is always nice. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Of course, resilience in the workplace. What is resilience? What does it mean to be resilient? I love this definition: the capacity to prepare for, cope with, and grow through adversity. Isn't that beautiful? That definition, I actually meditate on that both personally and as a business, and just think it's so simple and yet so profound that we need to prepare, which is why you're here, right? We need to prepare for those adversities that are inevitable. Certainly, we're all experiencing a lot of extra adversities with the pandemic and all that goes along with that in our world. But the fact is we're always going to have adversities, right? It's just the human condition. To cope with, have those strategies under our belt, have used them to know what to do with them, and then to grow through them, right? To be able to look back and get through it and to allow those things, those challenges and hardships to make us stronger. And so we're going to kind of be highlighting those three topics as we move along and see how it relates to mindfulness. But I think we probably all know our current challenges, right, include this COVID pandemic that we're in. So certainly we had chronic stress before, we had mental illness, we had anxiety, depression that was on the rise in all kinds of places within our workplaces and homes and communities. But that has certainly been elevated for the last year. And so, of course, these challenging times take a toll on employee mental health. I was really grateful I don't know if you can see the National Institute for Healthcare Management Foundation. I ran across some of very recent statistics, and I have a handout that's downloadable for you that Madison's going to share at the end of the presentation, and I have the link to a lot of this information that I share in this Prezi today. But to highlight just some of the statistics from 2019 to 2020, it was reported symptoms of anxiety have tripled from 8.1% to 25.5%. Depression symptoms have almost quadrupled from 6.5 to 24.3. In late June 2020, 75% of 18 to 24-year-old respondents reported having at least one adverse mental health or behavioral health symptom. Of course, the effects on work life, 51% of people reported worse mental health at work since COVID started. 54% of Americans fear they may lose their job due to the coronavirus outbreak. I don't know about you. I was not surprised, but I was also shocked at the same time, because I think we all know that, the people we serve, our community members, people in our family, they're struggling. But I think when we see this in statistics, it's even hits home even that much more. So certainly people are experiencing a lot when it comes to their mental health. Some of the increased mental health risk factors, which again are probably not going to be surprising, job loss, or just the fear of job loss, isolation, social distancing, that is very difficult because we are not designed for that, right? Juggling childcare and work. I don't know about all of you parents out there, but I talk to those people who are trying to balance all of that, and that is difficult. It's always changing, right, for many families, and then adapting, shifting, finding that support, not having proper supplies at work. I hear of people who have still fears and anxiety about that. Just the fear of getting sick, which we're going to talk a little bit later about that creates a lot of anxiety. Of course, managing perhaps expanded workloads from people. So there's certainly lots to create challenges when it comes to our mental health. So I think that we all know and recognize that is present and real. But of course, when we kind of think about what does a resilient workforce look like, again, we probably can all imagine this, but it's having employees that can remain calm under pressure, right? That our employees have strategies to guard against burnout and overload, that they can manage those internal and external emotions that are always happening, being careful not to get emotionally kind of taken away with the things that we can't control. Of course, we know that resilient people have that place that they can communicate well because they're not reacting. They know how to go to that place of calm and be mindful. Managing stress. You probably know plenty of people, as do I, who are just barely making it. I know personally, I am so grateful for my own mindful practices because it's been difficult for me, and I have a lot of strategies under my belt. And those that don't, of course, are going to go on autopilot and perhaps use unhealthy ways to manage that stress. Not only to mention that impact that has on our body, disease, our immune system, and all of those things. Of course, we want our workforce to be able to overcome those interpersonal challenges that they bring to the workplace inevitably. Taking on new challenges successfully. I would say that probably many of your employees, including yourself, have new challenges, if not weekly, daily, monthly, just addressing all the changes that are constantly occurring. And of course, really having those skills to deal with difficult people. We're going to talk in a minute about that, but that's something that is, no matter what season we're in, we're always going to have to be dealing and know how to deal in healthy ways and with a good outcome and dealing with difficult people. So, of course, this is really what we want our people to embody, to live, both in their personal life, because we know that they bring that to their workplaces, right? And then, of course, in the workplace. So I ran across this employee survey. So I also highlighted in the handout you're going to get a link to all of this. But there was a survey done, the Workplace Resilience Survey, and these were some of the results. And of course, this was done back in 2017, which it would be quite interesting to do this in the last year. To repeat it, but we're going to use this information that we have. And I think it's just really telling when we can really kind of get a pulse on where people are. So they surveyed about 1,000, little over 1,000 employees across 25 different businesses, and 76% of employees perceived resilience training as extremely, very, and somewhat valuable. To me, that's super optimistic, right? That means that people are, at least 76% of people have the perception that it's helpful. And that's good for us. Because if they're open and interested, then they might just participate. 78% of employees participated in a resilience program offered by employer. I think that's fantastic. While we still want all of our employees to participate, I think 78% is a really great number. I would be curious to see if that would even be higher now, because I think that most people recognize that they're struggling. Most people are very hungry for some help, especially if it occurs on work time and giving opportunities to learn these things. So that's optimistic. Some interesting incentives that would increase participation, because I do find this when I work with organizations, sometimes we'll brainstorm like, what holds people back? How do I get people to engage? Because we all know we can't push a rope, right? This is kind of personal development. We can't force people to want to learn how to be resilient. And so these were just some of the incentives. Of course, the number one was monetary, right? That's not super surprising. That kind of carrot that we can kind of hang over people. I know that with the organizations that I've worked with, those that have tied in a lot of these kinds of trainings, if it's connected to the incentives they may get for their healthcare discount. And I know not every organization can do that, but certainly if you can, that's a great way to get engagement. Training during work hours, right? Not asking people to do it outside the workday. Leadership support of the training, that is huge. And that's really key, because if you're really trying to develop culture within your organization, it really needs to be top down. We can, tell people what they need to do, but if we're not living it and embodying it, it's most likely going to kind of fall on deaf ears. So we want to get leadership support, and people are sharing that impacts them. Group goal setting related to resilience, kind of creating that sense of community. Employee input on program design and delivery. I love that. And again, we're going to talk about that a little bit later. And then non-monetary incentives for participation. So maybe just celebrations or plaques or just, things that we can do internally to celebrate.
So I think Robin, sorry, we did have a question come through the chat from Workplace Healing. They said it's a great survey. Do you have additional source information?
Yes. So it's going to be on the handout that Madison's going to send. There's a link to this whole study. Yep. Yeah. So they can get that. Thank you. So we also got some additional results. Participation in resilience training programs positively influence employees' perception of and commitment to their employers. And I think that's beautiful too. And I think what to me that says is that when we offer it to our employees, they're investing in us because they value us, right? And so I think that it turns into a real win-win situation. We want our employees to be committed to our organization, because the more committed the more they feel valued and invested, they're going to want to, stay and continue to serve in their capacity. The interesting thing was the number one topic of interest was dealing with difficult people. And I think that's probably across the board, no matter what. This is always going to be something we deal with. Again, my guess is that this might change if this survey were given in the last 6 months or a year, because anxiety or stress or fear, any of those topics might have taken the number one spot. But certainly dealing with difficult people is something we are always going to be needing to do. In fact, I was thinking the other day, wouldn't this be great if like every student before they left high school had to master how to deal with difficult people before they left high school and went into the world? Kind of like a requirement. Anyway, so let's keep moving. I'd love to talk to you a little bit about my space, right? Which is mindfulness. And mindfulness ends up being, it's this beautiful vehicle of how we get to being resilient. Mindfulness offers that, and it's easy and simple, and it's quite life-changing. Mindfulness is simply the ability to be present in the present moment without judgment. Now, what does that mean? That means that I'm turning off replaying the past, right? Our brain loves to ruminate on things that happened perhaps before you got on here, that happened this morning, last week, last month, last year. For some of us old people, it could be 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. Something bubbles up, we start spinning on it, right? It means that we're pushing the pause button of the future, of wishing and worrying about the future. Our brain loves to live in the future. It loves to try and predict things that may happen. It's a survival mechanism, and we appreciate that. Unfortunately, most of the things we worry about most likely are never going to happen. And yet we spend a lot of mental energy and emotional energy living there. So when we're in the past and our thoughts are in the future, we are not in the present moment. And the present moment is our place of refuge. It's our place to be. And for most of us, this moment right now, no matter what challenges you have going on, what difficulties you're facing, this moment, all is well, right? Now, interestingly enough, the average person in a 16-hour day of wakefulness, from what we found from research, the average person is not in the present moment over 7.5 hours of their day. So almost half of our day, we're doing one thing and thinking about something else. We're showering and we're not thinking about the warmth of the water and the steam, and the comfort. We're driving and we're thinking about our to-do list, right? Or ruminating on something we need to do, or the conversation that we didn't go quite the way we wanted to, or that mistake or fear of something. And so if we can get to the present moment, what we also know from the same study is that we derive the most happiness from the present moment. And I think that is encouraging, because honestly, the past and the future is a heavy load that we carry with us all the time. And it's a weight. And so we can just find this beauty and joy in the present moment, and derive the most happiness. Now, how does it connect to resiliency? If we kind of go back to that definition of what it means to be resilient, first we prepare for, right? Cope with and grow through. So I want to just kind of connect how mindfulness does that in our efforts to prepare for. Mindfulness is really about building habits and skills necessary to navigate life, okay? And we do that through awareness and self-understanding. That is the key to any kind of change we want to create. This is lasting change. This is change from the inside out. So we can tell people what they need to do when they need to do it. We've been doing this for years. We do this to our kids. We do this to our spouses. We do this to the people we manage or lead or work with, right? And they can actually create a habit. But when that outside influence stops, they're going to shift back to their old ways of operating, right? And so this is really empowering people, because you're the only one that knows what's going on in your own head. You're the only one that knows your thought patterns and when you've been ruminating on something for the last 2 hours that you can't go back and change, right? Or that you are worrying about something that most likely will never happen. So it's really built on awareness and self-understanding. We're also really building these neural pathways in our brain. So, we have millions of them in our brain, maybe billions, and they're neural pathways that we've used for a long, long time. And so what we're doing when building those new skills and habits is we're starting to create new ones, and they take time to develop and to build. We have to use them over and over, but they can certainly change how we live and experience the world. We also want to keep in mind that anything that we're trying to ask people to do, or anything in the area of personal development, needs to be easy and simple. You probably, like me, have gone to a training or a conference and you learn all kinds of great stuff, right? And then what happens when you come home? You kind of just do what you've always done because there's too much, right? So we need to make things easy and simple and very small. That's how we create change, right? It's very small baby steps. We also have to have this marathon mindset, right? This is not something that's going to happen overnight. It is not going to be a quick fix. It's actually going to be longer than a marathon, right? I mean, a marathon, we at least commit to a 6-month training. For mindfulness and resiliency, this is something we're going to be working on our whole life, right? We're never really going to get there and be done. If only we could be, we would all be, mindful and resilient all the time. It's something that we always have to be moving toward. And then just starting slow, right? It's about those baby steps. And this goes for mindfulness or any good habit we want to build in our life. And of course, coping with our next piece, right, involves, for me and my curriculum that I'm so blessed to teach, we have 3 pillars. First is attention. And we have these micro practices that we teach, and they certainly help us develop resiliency, stable attention, just being able to get to the present moment. We need to be able to do that so that we can calm, reset, self-soothe, go from kind of crazy to calm with that stable attention. Creating an open attention helps us kind of clear out that mind chatter, those things that are bouncing around in our head all the time that are kind of distracting us and taking us away from having this space to be receptive to new information. And then a vivid attention is really being able to have perspective. Perspective is really important, not only in living mindfully, but being resilient, because we can get caught up in things, taken off course so easily that we lose perspective. And so our vivid attention helps us with that. Attitude is incredibly important. Cultivating a curious attitude, really being able to kind of take those blinders off, being able to see that there is more. When we're stressed, when we're struggling, when we're feeling overwhelmed, we have this tendency to turtle in. And when we are turtling, we can't really see that there's hope, that there's possibility, that there's opportunity, that we're not alone in what we're experiencing. Compassion, of course, cultivating a compassionate attitude is incredibly important. We start with self-compassion because we know that if we can't give ourselves self-compassion, we really truly can't offer it to other people. We are always going to be making mistakes. We are imperfect people. We will be that till the day we die. But the research is incredible on the value and importance of offering ourselves that self-compassion. And then, of course, filling up with positive emotions. Again, the research is incredibly powerful with that, of really being able to internalize that gratitude, those mustard seeds of gratitude, that actually have a potential to change us on a cellular level. But it changes really the lens by which we view everything when we can embody gratitude. And then AIM is the third pillar that we share, which is also incredibly important. And we start with talking about cultivating an inspired AIM. What fills us up? What motivates us? What do we find that fills us up with that joy that to want to go out and do things. Of course, aim are those things that we're never going to get to, but we always want to be moving toward. Determined aim is really identifying like specific triggers and actions that aren't serving us well, right? And then how do I put into place how to create those changes? And then generative aim is really cultivating this understanding that when I take care of me, I'm helping take care of the we. And when I take care of the we, I'm helping take care of me, because we have this reciprocal relationship with every person. Whether we want to or not, we impact each other. You impact the people in your home, you impact the people at your office, the people in your community. And so when we invest in our own mental health and emotional health, we are doing great things for the people around us. So those are some skills that can help us cope with that adversity piece. And of course, then growing through is just as important. And I love this quote, John Henry Newman. I stumbled upon this a couple of years ago, and I've had it on a sticky note in my office ever since. And it says, growth is the only evidence of life. And I think that that's so beautiful. And it reminds me to keep growing, right? If I stop growing, I'm going to get stagnant. And that's not always easy. But the good news is that we don't have to grow in huge ways. It's about those small baby steps of just nudging myself to continue to grow so that I can create that life that I want to create for myself. And some things that we do in that growing mode is that we have to pause, right, to reflect on what we've experienced, to just be with it. That's very much of what being mindful is. And then learn from it. What can I learn from it? And then let it go, right? That's not always the easiest part, that letting go piece, right? But most likely the things that you've experienced in your life that have built your own resilience, it's been something, you've learned things along the way that have made you stronger. And that's really what we want from adversity. Having that growth mindset. The schools talk a lot and helping kids understand a growth mindset. And I want to encourage all of us adults to embody that as well, which is that mistakes and failure, those are good things, right? That's how we grow. We learn more from our mistakes and from the things that we get right. So how do we embrace that and embody that and celebrate that? Of course, cultivating self-compassion from the things that we experience, being able to offer ourselves that loving kindness, learning to be our own best friend, modeling authenticity, right? Incredibly important, and just being who I am, owning who I am, being able to be my authentic self with the world, understanding that this common humanity, that we are all in this together, which leads us to that shared experience. I think this is one thing that COVID is offering us as it's something we can be grateful for, is this shared experience of something hard. And let's utilize that to help each other grow and to really strengthen who we are as people. And so certainly that can help us as we look to grow from the challenges that we face. So how do we do this? We know that, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, it starts with awareness and self-understanding. Keys to creating lasting change. How do we empower people, nudge them to help them build that own awareness and self-understanding? And the other part that I think is really important, it's what we teach at Mindful Momentum, is really finding these micro moments for people. So it's not, in my view, any kind of training, whatever you do in your organization or choose to adopt, it needs to be not something added to everybody's plate. It hopefully becomes something we just do. It becomes something we are, not something extra that we have to take time out to do. And to do that, we find micro moments. So we all have micro moments throughout our day. These are these little nuggets of time in between things, right? And most of the time when we have a 30-second here, 2 minutes here, 1 minute here, most of us try and just jam one more thing in, right? Or we pick up our phone and check in on social media or whatever, right? We go to the doctor's office. Well, if anybody's going to the doctor's office these days, but in the olden days, pre-COVID days, I would be amazed to go to the doctor's office and you look around and everyone has their head in their phones, right? And what a beautiful opportunity to just take 30 seconds, 60 seconds just to sit and breathe and to be present and then pick up our phone, right, to check in. But we have these micro moments. We take bathroom breaks. We have time in between meetings. I had a few minutes before we started this, between my last thing, where I just sat and did some deep breathing so that I could just get present for you today. We have moments where we're picking up kids from people's houses or activities. We're waiting in the grocery store line, right? We have these micro moments. If we can build an awareness of those micro moments, right? And then we bring out one of our mindful tools to utilize during that micro moment. And then it just ends up becoming part of our day, the fabric of our life, not, again, something we do. What we know too, and let me just share this with you, is the latest research tells us that if we can do something for 10 minutes a day, but it doesn't have to be all at one time, accumulated 10 minutes. So that means 30 seconds here, 2 minutes here, 1 minute here. At the end of the day, if we can practice something for 10 minutes, within 3 months' time, we can create a new neural pathway in our brain that changes how we live and experience the world. So it's doable, it's manageable. And that's what I find from people that I share this with. It's like, okay, I can do that. I don't know if I can sign up for, something that's going to require me to meditate for an hour or 45 minutes because I'm just too busy. But most people recognize that they have micro moments in their day. So I want to next just shift a little bit and start with you because you're incredibly important. We have to start with ourselves. If we want to create a workplace, a culture of resilience, we all have to start with ourselves, and that's building it within us, right? Because how you live and what you model speaks much louder than any words you say. It just does. The old adage of do what in parenting, do what I say, not as I do. Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't work, right? We have to be living what we want other people to embody. We have to be modeling it. And it gives us, when we do that, not only the gift that we give ourselves, but it's that gift of caring for me, which shows that I care for you. Because if I'm in this place of being able to be resilient and be present and mindful, I'm going to be able to reap all those benefits, which is then mean being present for you, being open, being able to communicate, pausing before I react, thinking before I respond to that email, understanding that everybody's got a story, being able to give empathy and understand that most people are doing the best they can. So many pieces we derive that ripples out to every person that we encounter. So I want to share just a little bit with you about attention, which is our first pillar. And attention is incredibly important. And you are the ripple, right? That's why that picture is there. And that's why we start with ourselves. And I know most likely you're stressed, right? Like you're like everyone else, because no matter where we are, or what we do, or how many, coping strategies we have under our belt, we're all a work in progress all the time. And so I wanted to invest a little bit in your mental health this afternoon. And attention's really tuning into what's going on inside of us and outside of us. And to do that, we have to kind of pause, right? When we're running around with our head cut off, like just everywhere and thoughts are everywhere, we have no idea what's happening inside of us or what's happening outside of us. So we have to kind of get to that place of the present moment to be able to do that so that we can gather good information, right? So we can begin to reflect. Not only does that calm our mental state, but it also calms our body, lowers our cortisol in our body, allows us to, have cultivate that kind of rest and recharge mode. So I want to share with you a couple brain facts that I think are fascinating that I thought might resonate with you. So in our curriculum, we share 9 brain facts. And brain facts are really, I just think they're fascinating, but also they help us build awareness and self-understanding. So if I'm trying to build an awareness about myself, then I need to start noticing something, right? And the first one I want to share is that my brain and I assign an emotional tag to everything I experience. So we give everything in our day an emotional tag, positive, negative, or neutral. Whatever tag we give it is most likely what we're going to experience. Okay. The interesting thing about this brain fact is that we all naturally gravitate to the negative. So we're actually 3 to 5 times more sensitive to negative information. And it's a survival mechanism, right? And we appreciate that. So, one of the classic little examples is in primitive time, right? Would it be more important to notice the poisonous snake or the beautiful flower? If we're talking about surviving, of course, we need to notice the poisonous snake, right? Really important in primitive time. And yet we still do this today. And we certainly are not short on negativity in our world, right? It's everywhere. And if we're not careful, we can kind of get sucked into it, which is why we want to be mindful and be aware so that then we can do something different should we decide to. So we want to just start noticing these emotional tags that we're giving everything in our day. The second is that our brain is a huge energy guzzler. This is really going to be helpful in helping us kind of decide what to do next if we can start tuning into our gas gauge. So everything we do throughout our day consumes a massive amount of mental energy. And so if our mental energy is on E and it's 10 o'clock in the morning, oh boy, right? We need to be mindful of that. Either fill up with a little bit of mindfulness, which fills up our brain with some energy, or we need to be mindful of how we proceed throughout the day if our energy level's on empty. And so certainly I've noticed this. End of the day, 4 o'clock, you get that email that it needs a response, but yet your energy level's on empty. Probably not the best time to respond. So perhaps I'll address this first thing in the morning when I know I've got enough mental energy. Because if you're like me, you've responded and then it's not necessarily our best self we're putting forth. So tuning into that energy level in our brain. And then the last one that is just so telling for the time we're living in is that our brain is this natural storyteller, yet it's not a reliable narrator, right? Our brain is telling us stories all the time. Little stories, big stories, and everything in between. And yet it oftentimes gets the story wrong. So a perfect example of this is we could probably all relate to is you wake up in the morning and you've got a little bit of a sore throat. It starts out as just a little sore throat, right? But then what does it soon morph into? Uh-oh, how do I feel? Do I feel I kind of think I feel kind of tired. Oh my gosh, have I been exposed to anybody? I think I might have COVID. Oh my gosh, I do have COVID. I'm going to have to quarantine. I'm not going to be able to go to work. What if I can't go to work? What if I die from this? Who's going to take care of my kids, right? Woo! We go from 0 to being on our deathbed in 60 seconds, literally, right? And then when we're there, we embody it. Our body believes it. We convince ourselves. And the next thing you know, we just know we have COVID when in fact, we don't, right? I hope you're chuckling. I hope I'm not the only one who has done that in the last year. But we want to catch these stories, right? They happen in all kinds of places. Catch our stories, pause, come back to the present moment, right? So that we don't get sucked into that and taken down a path unnecessarily. And so let me just share with you really quickly that the reason it does this is so it doesn't have to analyze each little piece of information because that would consume a lot of energy, right? And so it's a great hardwire in our brain, but one that we want to kind of keep in check if we're living mindfully. So attention, of course, is our brain's gatekeeper. Attention is selective. We do not pay attention to everything. What we attend to grows. What we're paying attention to is where our life will be. I love the whole attention is selective. So maybe you've had this example where you buy a car and you're out on the highway and you notice the car that you just bought on the road and you're like, I had no idea how many people drove red cars. You had no idea before because it wasn't in your attention. But once it is, then you start seeing them everywhere, right? And that is true with our attention. It is selective. And so we want to be mindful of what we pay attention to. This spotlight theory of attention is quite fascinating and really empowering. It's this understanding that we have a spotlight within us. So let's imagine that the room I'm in, the room that you're in, we turn off all the lights and it's pitch black. And in this room and in my life, there's goodness and there's joy and there's hope and there's love and there's happiness and success and goodness, right? And in this room and in my life, there is also fear and worry and hardship and trauma and mistakes and failures and grief, right? And sadness, because no matter who we are, no matter what our job title is, no matter how much money we make, we all have all of that going on in our life, right? We never want to deny or suppress those harder things. It's kind of like holding that beach ball underwater in the pool, right? You can do it, but it takes a certain amount of mental energy, right? So we want to allow it to be. Those harder things in our life, they're part of us. They're part of our story and our journey. The great news is we have a spotlight within us. We get to choose what we shine it on, right? Now, if we're on autopilot, which was a brain fact I didn't share with you, which is kind of just doing what we've always done, we're going to naturally shine on the negative, right? Our spotlight is going to want to shine on that fear and that mistake you made last night and that worry that maybe you're going to lose your job because of COVID or that, something going on with your family or a colleague. All of those things that are negative, it's going to want to shine on. And if it's shining on that, then that's where our life is going to be. Oftentimes I say to myself, Robin, where's your spotlight? If it's not where you want it, move it. We get to choose what we shine our spotlight on. Okay, we just have to be aware that we have it. We have to be aware of what it's shining on, and we have to be intentional about taking action to move it to something else. So I want to share with you really quickly a simple practice just to start building your toolbox. And you may already have something like this, or you may have this if I've spoken with you before. But this is just a great practice that cultivates stable attention. If I only have a few minutes with people, this is what I teach them. It helps us just to come to the present moment. We're going to breathe, focus, return, and rest. Okay, so I'm going to lead you through it if that's okay with you. So go ahead and get just to a place that's comfortable, sitting up straight with good airflow into your lungs, and perhaps your hands laying on your lap with your palms up. If you feel comfortable closing your eyes, I encourage you to do that. It blocks out about 60% of the stimulant going into our brain, but certainly if that makes you feel uncomfortable, you can just lower your gaze and stare at something on the floor. But we're going to begin by just noticing our breath. Noticing that life-giving air as we breathe in and breathe out. Allowing our breath to get a little slower and a little deeper with each breath cycle. Perhaps you notice the heaviness of your feet on the floor, or maybe that one foot feels warmer than the other. Perhaps you notice some tension in your shoulders. Just breathe to relax. Now this time when you breathe in, I want you to picture the word just in your mind, J-U-S-T. When you breathe out, I'd like you to picture the word this, T-H-I-S. Breathing in just, breathing out this. If a thought pops in your mind, that's okay, just notice it and gently bring your attention back to breathing in just and breathing out this. We'll bring our attention back to our breath, back to that life-giving air as we breathe in and breathe out. Feeling grateful for this moment, savoring the sense of peace you've cultivated within. You may slowly open your eyes when you feel comfortable. I can't see any of you, so I hope that went well. This is a great practice to just help us get to the present moment. Let me tell you a couple things about this practice that's really important. One is we certainly can just notice our breath and do 3 deep cleansing breaths. That's golden. But we also can envision something that our brain is focusing on, which is why we focused on the word this, just this, right? And so what we're doing with that is we're building our muscle of concentration and focus. And so it's kind of forcing our brain to focus on something, which is beautiful because not only are we going to strengthen that muscle every time we do it, which means that I can stay in this meditation a little bit longer. But what that translates to and how that ripples out is that I can focus and concentrate on the person I'm talking to longer. I can focus and concentrate on this project I'm working on. Even at some point, we can have all kinds of distractions all around us, and we can still be focused and concentrating on that one thing. But it is our place of refuge. It's kind of this home base where we can just breathe, focus, return, and rest. Okay. A couple of things about this. We want to start slow. If you've never tried to quiet your brain or your thoughts, this might have been difficult for you. And if it was, that's okay. Maybe you just start with 3 deep cleansing breaths, right? We always start slow. We have to kind of build up to things. We might just do 20 seconds or 30 seconds until we can get to a minute or a couple of minutes. We give ourselves grace because we're a work in progress, right? And we make it our own. So I want to encourage you to change up the words. You can breathe in an image, breathe out an image. It doesn't matter, right? Whatever works for you. Lots of times people tell me they'll breathe in be here or, peace and hope. So whatever it is for you, right? I want to encourage you to use this in a micro moment when you find it for 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 2 minutes. It has the potential to change everything. This practice is near and dear to my heart. As some of you who know my story know that in 2012, I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And this was one of my go-tos, along with other things, but just to help me stay in the present moment. And so I do some version of this practice probably every day, if not multiple times a day. Again, we have to build an awareness that our shoulders are up to our ears, or awareness that we're breathing very shallow, or that we're feeling anxious, or that we're feeling overwhelmed, or we have a tightness in our chest from stress, or whatever it is. We have to build an awareness and then retreat to this anchor of our stable attention practice. So that's my gift to you. I hope that it will be helpful for you at some point as you begin or continue your own journey of mindfulness. So as we keep looking ahead, I'd like to share with you just some things to consider as you move forward. And so I think I mentioned the handout that Madison will be sharing with you. I kind of was looking at a lot of the different resources that I've shared with you in that, and just kind of summarized a few of the things that I thought were really important. I found this great quote by Socrates. The secret of change is to focus all your energy not on fighting the old, but I'm building the new. Isn't that great? I think that this is where we are, right? We can't keep doing what we've always done. We've got to start looking ahead, which is why you're here, and kind of figuring out how do we build a workforce that is embodying those strategies and those coping strategies to navigate that hardship. So we start with self. We've talked about that already. Incredibly important. If possible, it's really important, whatever we're doing, to be top down. I know that's not always possible, but the research is very clear that if we want to create a real culture shift within organizations, it has to be modeled by leadership. I was reminded of this recently I was working with an organization, and someone shared with me that that their organization really encourages people to take their vacation time, right? And this person said, yeah, my boss always tells me that I need to take vacation. He's telling me to take it all the time for self-care and that I need it, but he never takes it, right? And that just feels disjointed. So if we want our people to be investing in their own mental health, we need our leadership, our managers, those that are leading others to be investing in it as well. Getting a pulse on your people. So kind of getting a feel for where are they? What are they experiencing is really important as you kind of look ahead to figure out what's a good fit, for your organization. Creating internal champions is really important. Brandy, I know you have a kind of a leadership team at McGowan Gordon. I know Haley Prophet at Garmin, when she did a resilience program, she had kind of a focus group. So really kind of finding people that can be those boots on the ground, people who can champion all of this instead of it just coming from one person in one department. Finding something that connects to your existing values as an organization. So really finding something that's a good fit for you, or finding something that could be customized to fit you, right? Because it's not always, just one thing is going to work for everyone. But finding those programs out there that are a good fit. Implement a plan, like start somewhere, even if it's small, and then assess it, right? Check in, maybe do a pilot. When I work with organizations, lots of times people want to try a pilot. Let's just see how it goes. Let's get a feel for how people receive and respond to this. And then we can do more after we assess that. And incredibly important to scaffold and support the journey. None of this is a one and done, right? Building people's resilience, helping people have that personal growth has to be something that's ongoing. In education, I was an educator for many, many years. You don't just teach kids something and then say, good luck, right? We have to continue to support. But us adults are the same way. We have to continue to be supported, opportunities to practice and to grow. And so that requires our organization kind of embodying that as well. I want to encourage you to tap into resources. I feel so grateful that we have the Healthy KC as a part of the Kansas City Chamber. What an incredible part of that. And as many of you already know, and some of you probably are even on it, the Kansas City Workplace Mental Health Assessment resource. On the handout that I shared with you, I have a link to that. It is awesome to know that we have all of these providers in our community that are there and ready to help all of us address these issues within our organizations. And so you don't have to figure all this out all by yourself, and that can be a great resource. Look to those forward-thinking organizations, those ones that are forging the path that maybe have been there before, like Garmin, like McGowan Gordon, like those organizations that have really been in the forefront of implementing wellness programs and investing in their people, and seek out the things that they've done that have been helpful. The American Heart Association is one of the resources that I have shared with you in the download, the document that you can download, and it's called Resilience in the Workplace. I have an infographic link to that, but I also have the full resource. And then employee mental health and well-being, emerging best practices and case study examples. Nancy Spangler, which many of you know, worked on that. And so lots of great information in that. And then this was the case study that Garmin did on building resilience within Garmin. So we have so many resources in our community. And I just want to encourage you you don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? You've got a lot of things. You just have to reach out and find those resources. So,
Robin, real quick, actually, Nancy Spangler in the chat said, thank you. These are excellent. how can workplaces build communities of practice in support of each other?
Well, I think that we start this journey together, right? We start taking these baby steps. We start being authentic and real. And I think it requires us to be a little bit vulnerable, right? And put ourselves out there just a little bit to start connecting with each other in real ways, and to know that we are kind of all in this together, whatever it is we're experiencing, whether it's the pandemic or anything else. I think when we get to that place of being just another human being with another human being, we create that acceptance and understanding and empathy for each other. And when we can do that, when we can just see people and value them for where they are, that begins to ripple out to this respect and understanding and sense of community. I hope that helps. And we're going to get to questions and answers. Let me just wrap up this. So a couple of thoughts I want to share with you before we get to questions and answers. It's just a couple of things to hang on to. We were all born with everything we need to be resilient. We all have that inside of us. You, me, every person you serve, every person on this earth. It's a muscle that needs to be developed and strengthened. But it all starts with a decision. It starts with a decision to you personally to begin a journey, a decision in your workplaces to start something, to do something, to begin helping and empowering and investing in your employees. So I wish you well as you cultivate a resilient workforce. So I wanted to just wrap that up and then head to any questions that we might have. So let me just back out of this. There we go. Anything there, Brandy? Any thoughts, comments?
I haven't seen anything come through yet. Does anybody have any questions for Robin?
Oh. Wow. Okay. No questions. Oh, that's easy. Maybe everybody's ready to get off. That's been an hour.
Well, Robin, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us today. All of those things are so helpful to well-being practitioners and leaders, I'm sure. And I do, before we go, I want to remind everyone to please join us for our annual Healthy KC event and vendor expo. The event is the morning of March 31st and will take place virtually this year. Our theme is positive mindset, thinking about our mindfulness today, bouncing back and staying resilient. And Cynthia Newsome, KSHV TV anchor, will be our keynote speaker. All the event information, registration details are all at the KC Chamber website. And if you're interested in being part of the expo, send Madison an email for additional details. And I think, Madison, you were going to put your email contact information in the chat there. And thanks again to all of our Healthy KC sponsors and all of you for joining us today. We will follow up with a survey later this week to get your feedback about this event and other topics that you would like to discuss this year. So have a great week and everyone stay warm. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.